I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
Mysonne Lennon, what's going on today?
Listen, man, I'm here. You know, I woke up. I got a little breath in my lungs.
Last week you said you was good.
Well, today, you know,
the world is still switching and turning.
It's still
and
turning.
Moving.
It's still turning. We're still
moving. Still moving. I guess from my perspective, how I feel right now is like there's just days left before people go read my whole life, and I'm just.
Listen, man, ain't nothing to fear but fear itself.
I have a really powerful review that was released. I don't even know if they released it yet, so I'm gonna be careful and not say who gave me this review, but it's a really important one in the industry. And in the review, they talk about my book, and they say, well, you know, they say it's a busy story. It's got a lot going on. And they say, but it's powerful, and it's very vulnerable and authentic. And they say that, you know, pretty much, in other words, it tugs at the heartstrings of people. Like, you can feel this Black activist go from being all over the place to getting her life together and growing through the ranks. And so it was like it's like they read the book. They read the book.
Yeah, they read the book. I'm going to read it.
They read the book.
As soon as I give me a couple of days, I'm going to sit down.
It's 2 weeks. It's in a week that it comes out, and you haven't read it. So, but you know a lot of.
But I got the book. I just need to sit down. We just haven't had a chance to just sit down.
You said last week you was gonna read it tonight.
But no, I said I read a little bit of it, and it started off good.
Yeah, but
whatever. I've just been.
Anyway, I Live to Tell a Story is out in days. February 11th. Tomorrow, if you are in Louisville, Kentucky, need you to be at the Norton Healthcare Sports and Learning Center. That's at 3000 West Market Street. You can go to TamikaDMallory.com and purchase a ticket. It's $40. That gets you a book and some food and drinks. So, and I just want to thank everybody, my family, Attorney Lanita Baker, Sadiqa Reynolds, Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother, Westside Jen is a partner for this event. We've got AKAs, Links, Deltas, all types of folks that's going to be in the building. Breeway is going to be in the building.
Breeway.
So please, tomorrow, Louisville, Kentucky, if you're listening to this, come out and be with us at my first official book event, which is in advance. So you'll have a copy before the rest of the country. You'll have a copy of my book.
Got to pull up.
Oh, my God. Anyway, so that's what I got going on.
Well, you know me, man. I'm gonna be there. Definitely going to be in Louisville. I see my family in Louisville, and we're going to make sure that we turn this thing out. We're going to turn it out, man.
Turn this mother out. Anyway, let me tell you what my thought of the day is.
You ever thought of the day?
I do. Because you know what? I just I've been having the most calls of my life. I always say that. Everything that happens, people call and they call and we talk and we talk. And I just want to say this to some of the Black preachers across this country and some of the Black men and women, because we have a friend or several friends, at least three, but one that I had a really deep conversation with, who said to me, I don't care about transgender people because if your child is transgender, they have a mental health problem. And so that means that that's something you need to deal with a therapist. And I've heard that a few times. And so then I have people saying, well, I don't care about immigrants because you should have came the right way. Then I have people that say Palestinians, I ain't really see them with us. I don't know that they with us. That's all the way across the water. I don't got nothing to do with that. It feels bad, but I don't care. And some of these people, not all of them, particularly the friends of ours, they didn't vote at all, or they definitely did not vote for Donald Trump. But this is just how they feel. So they took a posture of being like, I don't know, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, but I ain't gonna really fight like hell. Then there were black pastors that refused to be engaged in their election because they said, I just can't morally, the abortion piece or the, LGBTQIA or whatever these issues is just not for me, so I'm just staying out of it. Then you had people who, black men and some black women, but particularly black men, who said they're taking all our opportunities away from us. And we can't, that's why we can't build wealth, because we always doing multicultural, it's too many people, but whatever. And now many of them are saying, this is crazy. Like, you're coming out the gate trying to rescind civil rights that don't just help black folks, by the way, but just civil rights that are important. Now, they may not be able to get these things done. They may not be able to get them done. But nonetheless, they're trying to do it. They have a posture, an attitude of second-class citizenship for black folks and others. And my whole thing that I want to say to people is that first they came for them and then they come for you. There is no such thing as isolating oppression, isolating, I want to use the right word, isolating hate. It doesn't work that way. These people, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and them, it could go on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. They believe in white nationalism. They believe in Europeans being the dominant race. That's what they believe in, right? And so what they are attempting to do is figure out how to move some people out and break the backs of black people and change our conditions in terms of our rights to where we have no choice but to go fill in the positions of those people who they've been able to eliminate. Mm-hmm. They don't care about law and order. If he cared about law and order, he would never have freed people who beat the shit out of cops, including a woman whose head was bashed in, a police officer, who now has a permanent mental health issue, right? They don't care about that. He doesn't care about law and order. He's total opposite of that. The total opposite. So that's not what it's about. It is very simply about the fact that there are people here who are doing certain types of jobs in the, on the land. They were saying that some of the farmers, the workers on the farms weren't showing up to work because they're afraid of being deported. So there are fruits and vegetables spoiling. All this stuff is going to get worse. But what they want to make sure is that you don't have the opportunities that you think you're going to have. So this is why they're closing down DEI offices. They're doing all of these things to ensure that there is not enough wealth moving, right? And if we don't change our habits, because there's a way we can deal with it, which is to spend with ourselves and build our economy up. That is us building with us, right? Us building with us. But what they want to do is reduce the opportunities so that this way you feel pressured and feel the need to go fill in what they have deemed. I'm not saying I deem it that way, but what they have deemed the lower class positions. Yeah. That's all it's a shuffling. They're shuffling people, and they got to do a lot of things in order to get there. So what I'm saying is that whether you want to admit it or not, all people who are oppressed and vulnerable are in the situation together. Every single one of us.
It's the truth.
We're all in it together. We can say we're not going to do as much for this group or that group, or we're angry or whatever. People who went out and voted, you got Muslims that voted for these people because they came and met with you and put up a billboard and told you they were going to do this and that and the third. And meanwhile, you knew good and damn well that these people were the same, if not worse, than the folks who were already in there.
That's a fact.
So that's my thought of the day. My thought of the day today is that Donald Trump and his homies are shuffling folks around, moving some out and trying to shuffle black folks into positions that will help to keep them as number one and everybody else number two and below. That's what they're doing. They're shuffling. And similar to how there was some of us who were told when enslavement became a thing on the shores of Africa, they were moving our people, and there were black folks whipping, snitching, and organizing with them against the masses. That happened because the Europeans brought nice things. They brought shiny things. Some of them were forced in various ways. Yeah. But there are others who they gave them shiny things. They gave them weapons. They gave them drinks, liquor. Liquor was a big thing, however they made liquor at that time. They gave them silver. They had all different types of trinkets that they dangled and said, you'll be a part of us if you help us do this thing that we're doing, this experiment, this plan that we have. And now we have the same mentality that some of us voted for. Others of us didn't do anything to stop it, didn't use our platforms, didn't say one word. Didn't say one word. You have people out here who are saying, don't stop supporting my brand. But they never did anything to help us when we were out there trying to stop this from happening.
We out there fought for to get these policies that got you inside these stores. They never did nothing to support anything. Never said thank you. Never did anything.
No. In fact, that manager you have, that business partner you have, or that rep that you have that is at these big companies that told you can't do politics. You gotta keep yourself out of that because you're a business person and everybody comes from different. You got people who might be Republican that support you. You got people that might be so-and-so to support you. You got to be careful. You can't do that. Guess what? Those people, they talked you into being a part of your demise. Because be clear, unless we support one another directly, depending on a big box store or any of that, it's not going to work. Eventually, they're going to, it will be fewer and fewer of you. So I think that the lesson we now learn is everything is political. I said that last week. I'm going to say it again. Everything is political. And if you are a person in business or in anything else who wants to see the morality, the dignity, the sovereignty of our communities be upheld in any way, you got to get political. You got to get in the mud.
You got to.
Because we in the mud.
Listen, if you do not have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu. Yeah. And that's the bottom line.
But they'll say that their seat at the table is that they are doing business. I mean, you know what I mean?
No, but what I'm trying to tell you, the seat at the table means that if you at the table, then nobody's going to tell you that they're going to exclude diversity, equity, and inclusion when they understand that that's how you got here.
Well, I heard somebody say today that that's not how they got their contract. It had nothing to do. We're real confused. We seem to think that diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that started in 2020. That's not a fact.
That's not a fact.
This has been going on for years. Reverend Jesse Jackson was one of those pioneers that forced companies to bring more black suppliers in, to bring more black board members and others in. So when folks try to say that they, I don't think that I don't know that I had anything to do with DEI or the summer of 2020. The summer of 2020 was a renewal, but it was not the beginning.
That's a fact.
In fact, if you want to go back even further than that, we all have been part of that in many different places because they wasn't hiring us at all. So there was no merit system that allowed you to be in place because they could know that you were. In fact, they got black people and black women know what I'm talking about that had all the merit. We at the top of the scale, most educated. We got all the things. We are brilliant. We're creative. We're organized. We are all those things. We know how to go into spaces and temper our emotional standing. Meanwhile, white women be crying all day at the office. We can't even cry. Not all white women, but some of them. We can't even cry. So we've been able to do all of that. And what they will do is let you present something. They will steal from you your intellectual property and go sell it elsewhere. That's how high we are in a merit-based system. If it was merit-based, they wouldn't have shit. They wouldn't have shit. So the idea that you don't know if DEI had anything to do with how you got your contract or diversity, equity, and inclusion, know that did not begin. This makes me so scared for us that we lack understanding of our history so much that we don't even know that this did not start in 2020 or let me go back to another time.
Even 2000.
Let's go back to.
It was before
2020 was George Floyd. Trayvon Martin was in 2012, right? Even before that. I'm talking about the 80s.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even before that. It wasn't even 20.
Even before that, the 70s, even in the 60s, this is work that has been done where people toiled.
On the backs of blacks.
They worked hard to get us to where we are now. So anyway.
We can go on.
I gotta be quiet. But we have a guest coming that is gonna speak. We're gonna be talking for a long time. So for today, I don't have anything else to say. I was going to give y'all TMI about this young lady that went on the internet and said, don't be coming back with no Milano clothes. That ain't it. You need to be in a Montclair, or she might have said Moose Knuckle. And it's like, and it was a young black girl who's telling people that Milano is passe and busted and this and that. But the white man stuff, this is the problem. That's why y'all been talking about boycott. Let me know when y'all ready.
They trying to girl cot.
let me know when y'all ready.
I've been ready.
I'm out. Let's get our guest in here.
Yes, sir.
When friends come through, we've got a friend today. Long time knowing one another, but becoming brother and sister as of lately, just coming together. Tragedy, and we deal with so much of it. And trauma can tie bonds. And while we may have been in many spaces together, I can say that we never really had any meaningful conversation until we was like, what we gonna do with this damn country? And so I'm so excited today to have someone who I am glad to be able to call friend and brother and comrade to join us. And you guys don't really know each other yet, but y'all ain't become friends yet.
Yeah, well, we here.
Yeah.
If he your friend, then he my friend. He's a friend of ours.
That's some straight bullshit. Because you know how many my son be like, I don't like them.
But they don't really be your friends though. These be associates.
My friends.
You don't have.
We're not gonna argue.
You just don't be realizing they ain't your friends. But don't worry about it. You right.
Anyway,
he's good. He good with me.
He good.
There we go.
All right.
All right.
But Maurice Mitchell, nationally recognized social movement strategist, national director of the Working Families Party, and also one of the brilliant minds behind the Movement for Black Lives. And I would say one of the foremost voices on social justice in the nation is joining us. And y'all people don't be knowing people. Y'all don't be knowing our people. They put folks with 10 million followers online and make them leaders. And then I keep hearing people say, we don't have any leaders. And yet there are so many leaders. And Maurice is absolutely one of them. Born and raised in New York.
That's correct.
To Caribbean working parents.
Correct. Which
means Working Families Party.
That's
it
right.
all is aligned.
That's right.
Comes from home.
That's right.
Thank you so much for being with us, Maurice.
So good to be with both of y'all. Truly.
So explain to us, like, what is the Working Family Party?
Okay. So I'm sure both of y'all have heard. Okay, I get it. The Republican Party, that's the party of Trump. That's the party of the white nationalists. Cool. But as a black person or as a working person, I think the Democratic Party is playing in my face. I think the Democratic Party is owned by the corporations, or they're taking my vote for granted, and we need something else. I hear that all the time.
We need something different.
Yeah, sometimes, before I even tell people what I'm about, when I say that I'm involved in politics or organizing, I'll hear like, we need something else. We need another party. The Working Families Party is building that something else from the grassroots. And WFP started in New York at a time when grassroots organizers and folks in labor unions felt that the Democratic Party had gone astray and was listening way too much to the interest of Wall Street and not to the interest of Main Street or the interest of the streets that we grew up in. And so it started in New York, and we've spread, and we now are in 20 plus states.
Absolutely.
And we're organizing on the ground, and we're focused on governing. So we're not just focused on getting people elected, because we want people to have the experience of registering, voting, getting people elected, and then recognizing that things change when they recruit people from the grassroots to get elected. And I like to bring up, you just mentioned that you're going to do an event with Jumaane Williams. A lot of people don't know.
February 13th, New York City.
Yep, shout it out.
At the New York Public Library.
Listen.
For my book.
I'm gonna be at one of them because there's something happening
on the 11th.
On the 11th,
it's a little cool thing.
Listen, this is your platform, so shout out your book, okay?
That's right.
Listen, so Jumaane, he was a grassroots organizer, a advocate for renters' rights, and he decided to run for office. And the establishment even today doesn't appreciate that brother the way they need to.
That's right.
But the establishment at that time did not want him to run for office. The Democratic Party establishment, certainly the Republican establishment. He ran as a Working Families Party only candidate in Brooklyn for city council, and he won.
I didn't really know that. Okay.
So so Jumaane got his start as an independent Working Families Party candidate. Tish James is another person. She started in the same way in Brooklyn, a lawyer for the people that the establishment couldn't figure out. And because she was so independent and because she was so righteous, the establishment in general, including the Democratic Party establishment, didn't know what to do with. And the Working Families Party recruited her to run independently against the Democrats and Republicans. So that's an example of what we do every single day. We recruit everyday people. Sometimes they're educators like Jamal Bowman. Sometimes they're people's lawyers like Tish James. Sometimes they're organizers like Jumaane Williams.
Working people, working families.
Working people, right? Because we believe that working people understand the solutions to the issues that they're under way better than who tends to get into office. Like most Congress people are millionaires that are former lawyers. Right? Former corporate lawyers, right? And so they tell you this lie that you need some sort of expertise that you can only get from...
You got to hire people that do that, that know some of those things.
Right, but the expertise of knowing how to make ends meet, understanding how the policies that are coming from Congress or coming from state legislatures, how they actually affect your lives, like dealing with affordability. Man, imagine a Democratic Party that understood that people were really wrestling with affordability. And they were actually able to, in a compassionate way, talk about how to help people get out of the affordability crisis that people are in around
in this previous election.
Right.
It probably would have helped them tremendously.
Absolutely. But in order to do that, you need actual working people who have that experience.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, so again, we've been around for a while, and as a result, those people get into office, and then they don't just sit in office not making a difference. I'll just give an example that just happened over the past, in New York. So Che Osei, that is another person who is a young elected official in Brooklyn, a working families elected official, and he passed this legislation with his colleagues in city council that for people who are renting, they know whether or not you go through a broker, you pay for a broker fee. It's totally unfair. But now in New York, because Che Osei was able to pass that law, that's not the case anymore.
So you can go directly and do your business.
And you don't have to pay that broker fee, right? Now, why was that unfair policy on the books? Because the lobby, because the real estate lobby benefited from it. Right? And so what you have is way too many people on the local level, including a lot of Democrats, who are listening to these lobbyists, right? Because they're making deals with these lobbyists. And they're kind of governing with the lobbyists, they're governing with the corporations instead of governing with the people. The Working Families Party is designed as a third-party movement where we govern with the people.
Well, okay, the interview's over. Thank you. In fact, in the presidential election, I ran in that door so ready to vote. Like, first couple of days of early voting, started going down Democrat, just voting for my people. And when I got to the judges, I got a little stuck because I needed to understand them. And then I started thinking, I'm voting on the wrong line. I don't want to be on this line. Yeah. So I quickly was like, hey, excuse me, what do you do if you messed up on your, and they were like, oh, we have to void it and go through a process. I said, yeah, I need to void. I have to, so that I could vote Workers' Family Party.
Yes. And so people who are listening who live in New York or Connecticut, right, they are able to vote on the Working Families line and take advantage of something we call fusion. And it was the law on the books in every state, way back when. And the reason why it was outlawed in so many states is because fusion was one of the things that allowed everyday people to organize against the status quo. Fusion voting. So you had parties outside of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party able to bring together coalitions of people on the grassroots level and vote as a block. Right now, it's hard for us as Black people to show that we're voting as a block. We get lost in the sauce because most of us, 92% of Black women voted for Democrats, right? The vast majority of Black men voted for Democrats for a lot of very smart and strategic reasons, especially in this last election. But it's hard to tell how much of us voted for Democrats. So sometimes we get lost in the sauce. In New York and in Connecticut, we know the exact number of Working Families Party voters because we have our own ballot line. So then we're able to immediately after the election go to these elected officials from the local level all the way up. And we could say, these are the amount of voters that voted for you, but they didn't vote for you on the Democratic Party line. They voted for you as on the Working Families Party line. Different values. So I could say, so our argument was vote for Kamala Harris, but vote for her on the Working Families Party. Because to show the power. Because we know you're not voting for Kamala Harris just because she's the Democrat, right? That you're voting
for the values of the working families.
That's right.
It should be for the working. For the same values that the Working Families Party holds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we could go and have that conversation. And listen, I know as a matter of fact that the conversations I'm able to have with politicians in Connecticut and in New York, because we could count those votes when it comes time to governing, that's a different conversation. That's
how long did it take you to get to this point? Because we have a world full of internet experts.
Yeah. Yes.
And they know everything.
God bless them.
They know how to start a political party. They know they're gonna do it all.
God bless them.
So
you listen to them, the world will be fixed with a snap of a
just
finger.
Because that's it.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to get to this point? And do you guys run white candidates also?
Yeah. Listen, we're a multiracial party, and so listen, all skin folk and kinfolk, right?
That's right.
And so the candidates that we run represent the multiracial working class.
Give us some white folks or other people so people will know, because they already turning you off. This interview has just ended. They are now saying, this is what I'm talking, multicultural, multiracial. We don't want that anymore. Yeah. We want Black.
Yeah.
So talk about some of those other candidates that you guys have endorsed.
Absolutely. Let me take, for example, Greg Kazar, who's a Latino candidate in Texas. Greg Kazar, who's also currently the chair of the Progressive Caucus in Congress. he stands on business. That's why we've endorsed him. So in Texas, not only did we support Jasmine Crockett, who I'm sure a lot of people know, but we also supported Red Khazar, right? Not only are we supporting candidates, like I said, like Jumani, we support AOC, right?
Okay.
We ran Cynthia Nixon against Governor Cuomo,
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Basically, what we've learned, right, is that there is a politic that is about the grassroots, about working people, about making sure that there's more money in the pockets of everyday working people, especially everyday working black folks, and more power. And that politics, to me, is the lens that we look at when we endorse our candidates. And so those candidates are going to come from different backgrounds. And I would just argue that it's not a zero-sum game to talk about a multiracial power, and also to talk about independent black power, right? Because what happens is black people, unfortunately, get lost in the sauce. So black people get lost in the sauce, unfortunately, sometimes in some of these coalitions, which is why it's important before we join a coalition as black people, we're clear about what our black agenda is. So when we join that coalition, we're joining with a clear black agenda that we're bringing into the picture, and a clear base of black power. Is when we join coalitions and we're unclear about what our agenda is, then we often find ourselves getting lost in the sauce, which has historically been our experience, unfortunately, in a lot of Democratic Party politics. They are hungry for black votes, but oftentimes when it comes to a black agenda, they are looking elsewhere, right? But that's, to me, on us. How sharp is our organizing? And
talk about how long it took.
So, yes, so Working Families Party, like I said before, 26 years. It took 26 years for the Working Families Party to build to this level. I've been the national director of the Working Families Party for nearly 7 years, right? And so,
and when you started in 7 years ago, sorry, I'm not trying to cut you
No,
off, but
please.
I know what we gotta hit
Yeah.
so people can understand.
Yep.
When you started 7 years ago, what would you say are the successes, or is the success? It would be more than one thing, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
From then to now, like how much has the needle moved?
Sure. So in the 7 years since I've been the national director, the Working Families Party has grown exponentially, right? We have new chapters. We're in California, where we could count 100 elected officials just in the state of California on the local and state level that are proudly Working Families Party aligned. I just came from the Bay Area where they met, and they were fired up. I was with Barbara Lee, who was one of our candidates. She ran for Senate.
Absolutely.
And
Bona fide. Yes.
Listen. And so that chapter, as well as some other chapters that we built recently, are the byproduct of hard organizing, right? Organizing. So I'm talking hours and hours of conversations, of humble conversations, of back and forth struggles about how are we going to build this? How are we going to make sure that our candidates are accountable? How are we going to make sure that we actually have the resources to run? So we're not just making a point, we're delivering for our people. Real struggles, right? The other thing I would say is, like, over the past years, look at the city of Philadelphia. So when I started in the city of Philadelphia was a two-party city. Democrats and Republicans. Today, because of the hard organizing in the Working Families Party, it is still a two-party city, but Democrats and Working Families Party. So we, the Working Families Party, kicked the two Republicans in city council in Philadelphia off of the city council and replaced them with Working Families Party only city councilors. So Kendra Brooks is the minority leader, and Nicholas O'Rourke is the minority whip of Philadelphia. They both are independent voices. They both are black grassroots voices. Kendra comes from Nicetown. She is a working class black mom, and she governs. She governs in the city of Philadelphia for the people. That didn't come through overnight. That started through a long process. When we started, a lot of people didn't think, especially the establishment, didn't think that we would be able to remove the Republicans and replace them with Working Families Party people. There were a lot of doubters, and there continues to be a lot of doubters. But, for anybody who's doubting, look at the results. I ask people to look at our receipts. So one concrete result, not just getting them elected, but in terms of how it actually affects people's lives, right? So, like I said before, we have this affordability crisis, right? We have a crisis where so many, we were just talking about it, so many working class Black people in particular, in cities everywhere, are finding it harder and harder to stay in their homes because of gentrification.
Absolutely.
We're being pushed out of our communities. Historical Black communities we're being pushed out of. And so in Philly during the pandemic, there was a problem because a lot of people were facing evictions, right? And a lot of people couldn't draw a salary, right? Because people were sheltering in place. And so Kendra Brooks, the Independent Working Families Party candidate, she passed a temporary law protecting renters. And so renters couldn't just get pushed out. They had to negotiate with their landlords, right? That kept a lot of working class people in their homes.
Right.
And then recently we made it permanent. And so if you look at the trend lines, there's a lot of trend lines for evictions that are going in this direction. But in Philadelphia, the trend line is moving like this because of that policy. So it's important for people to understand we're not just making noise. We're not just making a point. We're actually getting people in positions where they could govern. And then when they're in those positions, they are remembering where they came from. And it's actually benefiting everyday people. And the thing is like, I've heard a lot of people say, we need a third party in this country. I couldn't agree more. But I think it's important to look at the history of third parties, you know, so that we can learn from the different approaches.
Come on, teach now, right? Maurice.
Right, and I don't even need to go too far, right? So we could go further, but let's just look at what Ross Perot did.
That's exactly what we want to get into there.
Yeah, because you know, I'm really pleased that so many people were talking about third parties, especially last cycle, and you know. A lot of people had our name in their mouths, and I'm happy for that because it allows me to come to platforms like this and share more because people are curious. So 1992, Ross Perot, billionaire, right? He spent all the money in the world, and he started his own party, the Reform Party, and he couldn't break 20%, right? So to me, and the lesson that I learned from that is that if your approach is, all right, let's find a charismatic person who could run a campaign and run a top-down campaign every 4 years, and that will somehow break the duopoly and break the back of the Democratic and Republican Party. If Ross Perot, with all of his money, he was able to just buy blocks of time during prime time, right? He was able to, he couldn't break 20%. To me, that strategy isn't viable, especially if you don't have billions of dollars, right?
And people have to invest that.
Yes.
And where? Okay.
Right. So
I think so. That's what I think. Right. When I think about third party, I think that the third party serves as an addition to whatever candidate. Right. So if we already have a two party system, the third party is going to give leverage to the other party.
Yeah, right. Like, you use it until...
It's like, because like you say, the Democrats, we understand pretty much that the Democratic Party has failed us in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of candidates and people from our communities that are in it that need the support of the Working Families Party. You can run them as Working Family, but they fall under the guise pretty much of Democrats.
Yeah, what happens to them when if Jumaane, was he not a Democrat then?
Initially, he wasn't a Democrat. Once he got elected, the Democratic Party embraced him, right?
So it gives you that power. Do you see? Is a balance. It's a voting block, and is a voice that says this is what the working parties, the people in our community want. This is who we want. And then the Democratic Party has no choice, because what happens is you drown out their candidate pretty much.
Whoever they think.
Who they think. And then when they win, they have no choice but to embrace you. So what you start doing is and that's what I tell people, you have to retrain the values. You don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. Right there. I just think when I look at the Democratic Party, we have hundreds of Black people, and a lot of them are good. When we look at Jasmine Crockett and all these people who are under the guise of Democrats, we can't just throw all these people away. What we have to do is reform. There's definitely issues. There are definitely people that take advantage of our votes and all that. But we have to say, okay, this is our issue. This is our party now. Like when the working family, when you come and you say, look, we have the power. right? We know what the people want in our community. And we know that this two-party system won't allow us to do anything outside. But you know that you can't really win without us. Because when he talks about Ross Perot, that's the problem. Ross Perot just said, I'm just going to run as a third party, and you don't have no backing from anything else. So what happens is we have to use that as our leverage. We have to use it. And what happens is now when we start to take the values of the Working Families Party and we put it into the that's what we're supposed to do.
Well,
we
is it in the Democratic Party?
Let me break that down from my perspective because listen, you're speaking facts, right? One of the ways that I talk about the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, right, is that in the Republican Party, 100% of their elected officials do not believe in the basic rights or the human rights of Palestinians. 100% of their elected officials do not believe in the basic rights of Black people. 100% of their elected officials either believe in the billionaire agenda or are too fearful to do anything about fighting the billionaire agenda. And that was evident when you saw the number 1, number 2, and number 3 billionaire sitting in front of the cabinet members. Inside the Democratic Party, you have a debate, right? So the Democratic Party, there's a lot of people who I disagree with vehemently. There's a lot of people in the Democratic Party that align with corporate interests. And the Democratic Party is also the party of Summer Lee and Latifah Simon, right? And
Jamal Bowman.
And Jamal Bowman, right? And Cori Bush, right? And Rashida Tlaib, right?
And Jumaane
Williams. Right? So the Working Families Party wants to represent the interest and support and provide blocking and tackling for them so that they could do the people's business. And long term, we're doing the things to change the structures so that there could actually be
a viable
multi-party democracy. Right. And so we're doing both. We're engaged in politics today with many of the Democrats who agree with us and many of the people who agree with us. And we're building the independent infrastructure for the third-party, multi-party democracy of the future. And like I said, fusion voting exists in Connecticut and New York, but we want fusion voting to exist in many more states, and we're suing. And we're engaging in conversations.
Explain what fusion voting is.
So fusion voting is the thing that we talked about where in the ballot, you could actually see Democratic Party is one line, Republican is another line, and the Working Families Party is another line. And you could vote on the Working Families Party line, and it doesn't dilute your vote because you could choose. I could either vote for Kamala Harris on the Democratic Party line or the Working Families Party line, and either vote counts the same.
But it just shows the value that the Working Families Party brings because it shows that people are voting for the values of the Working Families Party.
That's right. Hundreds of thousands of people just in the state of New York voted on the Working Families Party line. And in many of those cases, the margin of victory was so slim that if those voters had not voted on the Working Families Party line, that candidate wouldn't have won. So it really does have a significant impact.
That's
absolutely. Okay. So I didn't want to spend so much time talking about Working Families Party, because you are that, but you got other stuff going on.
Absolutely.
But I do have to ask you, how do y'all play in the sandbox with the Democrats? Like, what does it look like? Because one of the biggest issues that I face when I tell people you vote on the Working Family, I told my girlfriend, and she works at a bank and whatever, and she was like, I need my vote to count. And I'm scared that you're telling me to do something that's going to mess me up, and blah, blah, blah. So how do y'all play in the sandbox together? And I know you said fusion, but maybe I didn't get it.
So let me just break it down. We cook with what we have in the kitchen. Some places like New York and Connecticut, we use fusion voting. And that allows for you to be able to vote on the Working Families Party line without spoiling, without wasting your vote. It actually empowers you, right? But we don't have fusion voting everywhere. And so where we don't have fusion voting, and also in New York, we like to get busy in primaries. We like to find those people that have a D next to their name for Democrat, but we have decided that they are not accountable in any way, right? When it comes, like they're not accountable. They got to this place. Either they came in listening to the corporations, or or they have gotten to this place where they believe that they're entitled to their role, that they're entitled to their seat, and they're not listening to the people. They're not being responsive to the people. And we primary those Democrats. We kicked them out of office. The reason Jamal Bowman was in office was because somebody who had been there for years needed to go, right? He wasn't even living in his district, right? This is how entitled they get. They don't even live in their district after a while, right? And so, and then a lot of them, for them, this isn't about service. This is a business, and so they got to go, right? And so the Working Families Party, we build coalitions from the grassroots with unions like the unions that my parents came out of, right? And grassroots organizations. And we build that coalition on the ground. We find candidates who we believe are actually accountable. We run them, and we often are able to primary and win people who have been there for years, people who have the backing of all these corporations, because when real advocates run, you could see that difference. And see, like the reason why somebody like Summer Lee, why AIPAC and the corporations have to send millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars against her, and she still wins, shows that formula works as well as it does. When you have somebody who can't be bossed around, won't be bought, is a true advocate, people in the community know where to be, stand up. You add that with the resources and support of grassroots organizations, and then also the support of Working Families Party that's been around for 26 years and other organizations. And then that grassroots coalition wins every time. And that's why we believe that over time, we could shift our politics closer to the people, but it requires the people to believe that it's possible, which is why being on this platform and having this conversation is so important, because people say, like, it's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Invest.
It's a process, and I tell people this all the time, and they're like, oh, and the frustration that I have with our people is we don't see, and it's designed for us not to see the strategy. Like when we talk about what happened in Black Wall Street and how they burnt down and how they constantly disenfranchise us, right? It's in this moment, that's the strategy that's happening right now. And we're not realizing it because we just saying, oh, the Democrats they just terrible, everything's gone. We need to get no. What happened is they've watched Black people amass so much power within wealth within this party. Like when I went to the Democratic National Convention, it looked like it was just a Black reunion, right? So when you start to see that, they say, okay, we have to disenfranchise them. We have to dismantle it. We have to completely make it seem like woke is the worst thing in the world. You say Black Lives Matter, everything that we fought for, they have stained it, right? Because they seen us gaining the power in it.
Yeah, and I wanna drill down here. One of the reasons why we endorse Kamala Harris is our focus on governing, right? And I want to explain. If we were able to, in this last election, get a Democratic president, get a Democratic Congress with a Democratic House. Why is that so important to us? So that Summer Lee, Jasmine Crockett, many of the people we talked about, Latifah Simon, could be in a position to govern. Right? So if it's just about personalities, it's hard to really understand the value. And it's like, I don't like Kamala, or I heard this, or I had that. It's about putting our people in a position to govern for our people. And in the Democratic Party, we've been able to organize a cadre of independent Black voices that stand on business.
That's right.
And best believe the corporations, the lobbyists, were aware of that. And when they were trying to shut us down and they were trying to drown us with misinformation and disinformation, and unfortunately recruit some folks in our community.
Absolutely.
Right? It was about that. That's what it was about. They understood what was at risk for their corporate agenda. If we put people like Latifah Simon in a position to govern in the House, right? Like they actually understood that, which is why it was so important to confuse some people. Luckily, most people in our community didn't get it twisted. But the thing that I'm always thinking about when it comes to that misinformation and disinformation is not, that's going to lead to millions of black folks voting for Trump, if they confuse enough of us, it might mean enough of us are unclear how to vote, and therefore enough of us are not going to vote, right? And to me, that's my greatest fear. And I think when you look, we're still breaking down what happened in that election, but millions of people who we know agree with our values didn't turn up, right? And I have to imagine being confused by all that misinformation led to some percentage of our folks unclear.
It definitely did.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people that I had to just unwind just the misinformation and say, well, where did you get this information? Well, they said, who's they said? Like, here's the facts. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Yep. And it's like they were constantly being fed just lies and just misinformation. And it's like today somebody just came on my page talking about Kamala's not black and all this. And it's just like, how do we keep having these conversations?
And that's the same thing.
It's just
in my judgment, that's the same problem we have whenever we talk about boycotts, right? I was saying to you off air that one of the problems that I see today is there's so many different people talking. Everybody has a voice. Everybody is an expert, as I said. And that is in and of itself misinformation, not even because what they're saying is not true, but it's that some of these folks who are talking about what to do not know what it takes to actually do it. That's and right. So you might not be able to say, well, we don't need Kroger. But when Kroger is the only place that people have to go eat, you can't just be like, we don't need Kroger, especially some of us who are sitting in very privileged places. We have to be able to say, we don't need Kroger because on Wednesdays, we're going to be delivering boxes of food, which is what we did in Kentucky, right? For months, we were feeding people so that they didn't have to, because Kroger was criminalizing them, assuming that anybody, first of all, they closed for a while. As you know, it was protests going on, so Kroger was closed, and it was the only supermarket in the West End of Louisville, Kentucky. And so we said, okay, well, we're going to bring food boxes out with, fruits and vegetables and things. Now, of course, there was some people who was like, what I'm going to do with that eggplant? I don't eat eggplant. But we weren't just feeding black people. It's other people who live in that area. So we might be able to do collard greens, but then what about, other families that needed other things? So that's just a little antidote. But nonetheless, we tried to say, okay, so Kroger's closed. We don't want that to be the focus. So let's figure out how we bring people what they need so they're not dependent on or feeling like, get this protest shit out of here because y'all over here protesting. And meanwhile, they won't open our supermarket. That's right. So there's so many needs of our people, and when they're online and everybody is saying and doing and this and that, it makes people feel like I can't do it. I don't know. Right. I don't even want to vote. Y'all telling us when we go down there they might beat us up. You telling us that we might not have our names on the list. You're telling us don't vote on Democratic ticket.
Telling us our votes
you telling us our vote don't count.
That's right.
It's so many messages coming at once. I don't even know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
And on whose platform? Zuckerberg.
Right.
Elon Musk.
Oh. Right.
So
but they got hoteps in your family too that know a lot of things, and they be smart. I'm not, I'm not against it, because sometimes brothers be checking me a little bit on things, and I be like, okay, I see you, bro. Yeah. But sometimes, I listen to some of the things that they say, and I'm like, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yes.
And I know what some of the challenges are, because those of us who are willing to make the sacrifice, the shifts to the working family, it's
that's right.
And we have to grow the base.
That's correct. That's
first correct. Before we can say, forget this party or that thing or this, that.
Spoken like a true organizer, right?
Got to grow the base.
Yeah, and there's ways that if you aren't listening to the base, even if what you're saying is factually correct, even if the policies are correct, even if you're right, because you didn't listen to the base, you now have a wedge between you and the base.
Absolutely.
Right?
We talked about that this morning.
So your people are looking at you like, what are you talking
about?
Because you weren't humble enough and you weren't rigorous enough in that organizing to always listen to the base.
Absolutely.
To hear like, all right, well, listen, like, yes, a boycott would be great as a tactic, but in order for us to earn the ability to boycott, we need to make sure that our people are fed, that our people feel a connection to the, like when people, you know, go back in history, people talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, right? That they organized the people to get there. It wasn't a snap decision because they needed to sustain the boycott. And that caused a significant amount of duress on the people because now you got to walk to work, right? Now you got to, you know,
2 and 3 hours early.
Yeah, and you know they had to organize all types of different arrangements to make sure that people got to where they need to go to, right? That is a logistical and organizing sort of commitment to your people. So you have to consider those things before you say, let's do this, let's do that. And so you earn the right to be able to do a tactic, right?
That's right. Oh,
right?
come on, Maurice.
You know?
We got to earn also every day. I mean, Coretta Scott King said that freedom is not given. It's not a given. Every generation has to earn it. And in order to earn it, you have to show the people that you're trustworthy and stable enough for them to follow what you are offering them. I got to ask you this question because you got to go.
Okay.
Midterm elections is coming up.
Midterm elections.
Are you optimistic? Are you what do people need to do?
Okay, listen. So considering this is just the second week of the Trump administration, right? I actually have a lot of optimism, and I'll explain why. I don't know if folks followed the MAGA civil war that took place even before they got into office, where Elon Musk and some of the tech MAGA people were arguing with the traditional MAGA people. And then the other thing I noted is that Trump was talking a lot about groceries and a lot about affordability, a lot about eggs, right? If you notice, he has abruptly pivoted. He's not talking about that anymore, right?
And the eggs, they said the eggs went up. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the price of eggs are going up, right? He has pivoted already, right? And to me, and we were saying this, we were saying this in real time.
We've been saying this,
right? That this is a grift. That he is a billionaire that is in league with other billionaires. He is not a true populist. He's not concerned about the price of eggs or making things affordable for your family, right? Not everybody got that message. Some people voted for Trump not because they're MAGA. Some people voted, even some people of color, some black folks voted for Trump based on quote unquote the economy, right? But this is a mask off moment. So people saw him next to the richest people on the planet, and he has some tax cuts he has to pay for. He has a bunch of policies he has to pay for. Where's he going to pay for those things? He's going to be looking at Medicaid. He's going to be looking at SNAP. He's going to be looking at programs that allow everyday people to survive, right? Elon Musk even said that. He said it's going to be painful. It's going to be harder.
He said we might have to put everybody on welfare, something like that.
Yeah, so Elon is saying the quiet part out loud.
Because he don't care. This is emboldened white privilege. This is a billionaire white privilege that I can say what I want. And it's just, when you watch that, it confuses me how people see something else.
Oh, listen.
It's
apartheid South Africa white privilege.
Right.
So it's that. That raw. It's that,
now.
you know. And so here's the thing.
It's home for him.
Oh, yeah.
This is his natural habitat.
He's coming home.
Yes,
He's coming
home. Yes.
And the thing is...
Oh, sorry. Mama made it.
Yes.
Like, we did it in America.
Yes, absolutely.
When I told you I was leaving here to go to America, I promised you that one day we would see what they stopped us kinda from doing over here begin again.
That's right.
Over there.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's the prodigal son, right? And so
Jesus.
Here's the
Damn.
It's deep.
It's something.
It's deep. You think about the psychology of these people, and the point I'm making is what gives me hope is, number one, people have eyes and ears. Our people aren't stupid. Working people are not stupid. Please. And many of the people, I mean, I'm even seeing it in the discourse online, including many of our folks who might have thought, well, we're voting for the anti-establishment. You can't get more establishment than all the billionaires in the world lining up with you know. So it's clear, And so I have a lot of hope for the organizing that we could do over the next 2 years to flip, because they have a very, very slim majority in the House.
Yeah.
Super
that
slim.
That one vote.
Super slim.
The other day.
And the other thing to note is that they aren't very disciplined. They tend not to be disciplined when it comes time to govern, right? So whether or not they're going to be able to make those slim majorities actually matter is a different question, because they have so many. Look, they have the ultra MAGA wing inside Congress, right? And they're blowing things up left and right? And so whether or not they're going to be able to make peace with them in order to govern is a different story. But the thing is, whether or not that's true, the people are going to learn quickly. They're going to learn quickly that they are governing by, for, and with billionaires. It's a true mask-off moment. And now it's the job for organizers and also the job for people who have platforms. And thank God we have this platform, right?
Thank you.
To tell the truth about it.
Yeah.
Right? So over the next 2 years, the people could get in formation. So I have a lot of confidence that we'll be able to flip Congress in these 2 years. The other thing I want to say is that there are so many opportunities. So people who are watching, and they might want to know, well, what can I do about it? I've seen what's transpired. I'm concerned about these anti-DEI policies, and I know
say the words.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, right? Because that's what it is, right? And I understand how it might impact my family or might impact. The thing that we need to do is to organize on the local level, right? And there's opportunity. Presidents aren't kings, at least today. They aren't kings,
not yet.
Right? And as long as they're not kings, and as long as power exists on multiple levels in this country, what's going on in your school board, right? What's going on in your city council?
Focus locally.
And this is why I say I want to go back to the Ross Perot strategy. Every 4 years, let's find somebody to run for president. Then you're not focused on school board, right? You're not focused on city council. You're not focused on what's happening in your county.
District attorney.
That's where so much of the governing happens.
Right.
In fact, most of the things that we're concerned with, like, well, the quality of education for my children, or whether or not it's still affordable in the city. That's zoning. Zoning is city council, is county, right? All of those things happen on the local level. And so many of those things, they know that, I'm sure people who are watching are busy, are hustling.
And tired of it.
And tired, right? And aren't close political observers and are locked in like the people here, right? Which is why we have organizations, right? Organizations exist so that with the time that you do have, we can make sure that time is the most effective. And there's organizations like the Working Families Party that are on the local level, and we're recruiting people for school board, for city council, for county, so that they could run and win. And so this year, they say it's an off year, but so many of those elections are happening this year. And then next year, the entire House of Representatives is up for re-election.
I'm so excited.
So we're gonna
work together.
Absolutely,
we're gonna be working together for sure.
Where did you get the motivation? Like, what was your childhood going to do this work? Where are you from?
Okay, so I'm from not too far from here. From a working class suburb of New York called Long Beach. I grew up in Long Beach. I was born in the late 70s, 1979.
Okay.
And my parents are working class people who came from the Caribbean. My grandmother came here as a domestic worker, and she left like 10 children in Trinidad and worked in the houses of other people Monday through Friday on Long Island. And during the weekend, she didn't have a home. And the reason we actually got our bearings in that community, that's an example of Black solidarity, actually. I actually spoke in Long Beach at the MLK event in Long Beach this past MLK Day, and I brought up this story. My grandmother, again, she's an immigrant from this country, new to this country, working Monday through Friday in the homes of white folks, taking care of their children, taking care of their families, away from all of her children. During the weekend, sometimes she would just sit in the park in Long Beach, right? There's a park in Long Beach in the center of town. And a woman who is a church elder, a Black woman, noticed her. Could have passed her by, but noticed her. And she's like, what are you doing sitting there? And my grandmother explained, well, I work in these people's home Monday through Friday. During the weekend, this is often where I'll sit and, catch a break. And she's like, you don't have people? You don't have any place to stay? And that day, she was like, you staying with me, right? You staying with me. And because of that, that led to a whole chain of events that led to me being here.
Wow.
And so what I took from that and my experience of growing up with my family, we had a very big family, a lot of aunties and uncles, a lot of cousins. You're a hip hop artist, so I grew up. My cousin, God rest his soul, MF Doom.
Shout out to MF.
Yeah, shout out. We all grew up together in this community, and we supported one another. And if there were people who had a need, just like that church elder looked out for my grandmother, we made sure that they had a place to stay. If there were people who needed work, oftentimes my grandmother would be like, stay here, I'll find work for you, right? And so I grew up with a family that, they didn't know they were organizers, but they were organizers, right? And so it was normal, and it is normal for me to understand that family is not just the people whose blood you might share. It is the family that you create here and now. And that's how Black people, in whatever condition we've ever been in, whenever we've been able to persevere, it's been because of the community that we build. And so when I do this work, it's in honor of my grandmother. And it's in honor of the people that chose to lean in and build community so I could be where I'm at. And I try to apply that in politics. So I don't look at politics as a dirty word, right? Because when I think about politics, and I think about democracy is just the things we do together, right? And so how can we flip it, right? They want you to think democracy is dirty so they could have all the spoils, right? But democracy is just what we do together and how we share. In the richest country in the history of countries, how can we share all of this so that we could be more whole? And when I see them try to do the divide and conquer, then I know what it is. It's like, look, immigration, right? They want Black folks to fight for crumbs, to decide who's going to be the permanent underclass.
That's it.
Is it going to be Black folks or is it going to be immigrants?
That's right.
Well, let's stop fighting for crumbs and let's come together as Black folks and have the entire pie, right? Or what if we came together and started an alliance, Black and Brown alliance, and we have the entire bakery, right? So in the richest country in the history of countries, how can I sit here and fix my face in protest of another working person that maybe they don't share my heritage,
right?
But they're just trying to struggle like me. A mother who's a migrant from Venezuela, right? Who's trying to make ends meet, right? How do I fix my face having a problem with her when my problem is with the billionaires and the corporations?
Yeah, you more mad at Miss Mary than you are Mr. Elon and Mr. So-and-so and Mr. whoever.
Yes.
Like, come on.
And just pick another divide and conquer. That's just one thing. They want us to be more mad at the fact that transgender people are trying to live their lives however they're trying to live their lives. Like, why am I out here mad at transgender people? How is me being mad at transgender people or my discomfort with their lives, how does that make my life better?
We talked about this.
This is the conversation I keep trying to have.
We have to.
This is such a
Janice
young.
is going to kill us.
Okay.
Right. Because I was about to say, which you cannot answer. How would birthright citizenship have ending or not having birthright citizenship? How would that have impacted your family?
Oh,
So, but anyway, you can't answer. It's
part two.
Part two. Maurice Mitchell,
Maurice.
National Director of the Working Families Party.
You're not FBA, they say.
Oh yeah, we could go into that.
Oh, he's not?
We could go into that.
Oh, I didn't know.
Listen, this is how they divide us that way. FBA
absolutely.
against the teethers, they call them. And
but then I get
turn it off.
Listen to me.
Put the internet down. I don't even want to know the term.
They try to separate us in so many different. It's the
but it's good. Somebody got to know.
But God bless Malcolm X, and his mom's from Grenada, where my dad's from. So God bless Malcolm X. I'm so happy that his mom immigrated from Grenada so that we can have a Malcolm X.
Exactly.
But we can have that conversation.
We love you, Maurice. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for coming by.
Appreciate you, sis.
Shout out to Maurice Mitchell, man. That was an excellent interview.
So much more to discuss.
Yes, man. So much more to unpack that we could have been here for a whole nother hour.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things that I wanted to ask him about this whole, senator entering a bill that would allow Trump to have a third term. It just was so many things.
I don't get it today. Is I am so confused at the ignorance of people, right? Because we had an election. People voted for Trump, people voted for Kamala, and the election is over. And there are people who actually are mad because now that the election is over, those of us who understand the political process, understand civics and engagement, understand how laws are made, understand how advocating for things work, are still talking about what's going on in America. We're talking about the president who was elected president of America. We're talking about policies that he's putting into activation, and they're saying, why don't y'all just go away now because the election is over, you lost, just shut up. And that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. We voted because we wanted America to look a certain way. So, all right, we didn't get the candidate that we wanted, but this president is the president of the United States. And he's actively signing executive orders that is affecting our life within 7 days. So we're supposed to just go sleep. See, this is why I don't understand half these people. I know that they don't get it. This shit ain't no basketball game where you a Knicks fan and I'm a LeBron fan, and after the game we shake hands, we just go and we just supposed to just be a sore loser or just shut up. No, this is real life. This is real life shit that's happening where these people are affecting our life. So you thinking that now that Trump is elected president because I voted for Kamala and she didn't win, that now I'm supposed to shut up? I'm going to get even louder because I know he's activating policies that's going to affect my life negatively. Trying to every day. So I'm going to get louder. I'm going to be on the front line. You're going to see me way more. I'm going to do so much shit now because I know that he's trying to disenfranchise my people and got people scared to death. You got people on the internet crying. You got migrants and immigrants crying. You got people who are not even, they just are from Hispanic descent and seeing their people getting shit Latino.
I've been being educated.
So you got people from Latino descent that are just being crying online. You got black people. There's a black lady who was saying that they shipped her family out that was from the Caribbean and that was from different parts of Haiti and whatever that were being shipped out. It's not just affecting them. So this shit is really going on. And y'all think that we supposed to be quiet now because he won the election. Hell no. When he won the first election, I wasn't quiet. And I was telling you that he was a threat to democracy, that he was a threat to black people. And now that y'all see it, it's real crazy to me, right? Because there was so many blacks for Trump that was very loud that I haven't seen lately. Right? In the last week, I haven't heard them say anything. The most thing they're going to talk about is, oh, yeah, he said it's only two genders. That's what I'm talking about. That's all I'm worried about. So you sold our democracy. You sold our people down the line because you needed him to tell you that it was only two genders. And you think because Trump says only two genders that the people that identify as another gender don't identify no more, so they just disappear off the planet Earth?
No, but they don't want them, as we were saying earlier, they don't want these people to get to have resources.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you're not gonna stop nobody from being who they is because you don't want them to be. And you internalize that shit so much that you said, fuck it, they can have civil rights. They can have all the shit that our ancestors died and fought for. We'll just start from the beginning. As long as they ain't saying that it's a transgender. We just don't want to hear about it. And that ain't even affecting your life every day. So you thought that was enough to say fuck all the shit that black people fought for years? And then you think it's enough for me to be quiet? That I'm going to just be quiet because Trump is the president now and Kamala lost, so now we just supposed to go just hide under the stairs and just say nothing. This is what these people say. Oh, man, you going to cry? You going to keep? No, I'm not crying. I'm going to state truth to power every day. I'm going to call out bullshit. But I'm not crying though, because I don't know already. The crying shit is over. At this point, you got to roll up your sleeves. You got to put your hard boots on. You got to put your hard hat on. You got to get on this front line because this shit is real. And the same people that want me to shut up is gonna be the same people that say, "Yeah, man, tell them again. Tell the truth, cause y'all done fucked around and y'all about to find out." But it's cool because we was already prepared for this. We was mentally prepared. It took me a minute because I understood. But this man did the shit that I thought he was going to take in a couple months in 7 days. So we in for some shit.
But he didn't do that. Okay. I just want to make sure because I don't want to diminish it because what you're saying is powerful and true. That he is doing things and the culture is shifting. So because he's getting rid of DEI, you see corporations and others, because he's getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion in federal spaces, which is the only thing he can control, but the culture will shift in his direction. So I don't want to diminish what you're saying, but I will say that things like birthright citizenship and other areas that he's working on, there are, in fact, levels to how it has to happen. Now, because he has control of the Supreme Court, the Senate, and Congress, will some of those things happen? Absolutely. But we already saw a federal judge block birthright citizenship. So, or trying to end birthright citizenship. That's been blocked by a federal judge. So he is attempting to do. And I just think that's very important because I don't want people to think that in 7 days he was able to do everything. But they definitely deporting people. They deported the wrong person or the wrong two people the other day. Then you see what happened in Newark, New Jersey. So there's a lot of terrible things happening. And there are people who are going to say, I'm not paying attention because I ain't, the immigrants, I'm not going to get myself all upset about that because what about they didn't vote and this didn't happen? And this didn't happen and whatever. And we could try to do that for as long as we want. But I think that my point from earlier, I'm just circling back to it, that white supremacists, white nationalists, whatever one you want to call them, they don't just dislike one group of people. They might not be as loud about their disdain for a particular group of people, but they don't like us all. And they are watching and saying, okay, we don't got to worry about it too much because they still arguing over what they're going to do. But see, the thing
for me is not that you don't like me because you don't have to like me.
Well, I'm just saying that's where their motivation comes from.
Yeah, but no, it's not even, their motivation comes from the fact that they want to impose their will. Right, they want control. Okay. They don't like anyone that's not them. So the reality is, when you're able to utilize your power and the fact that you don't like me to negatively impact me, well, I don't care if they like me. Bottom line is, I could care less.
I understand that, but I'm saying when I say don't like me, that's very
No, I get what you said. I just wanted.
I'm saying that we all in the same boat with them. So it's not about like you're my friend. It means they target all of us. They are looking at all of us with a level of disdain that allows them to try to do the things that they're trying to do. Makes sense. So that's that for that.
That's that on that. Brings us to the end of another episode of TMI. Shout out to our brother Maurice Mitchell who came and dropped some gems on us. We definitely got to have Maurice back on the show because he knows a lot.
Absolutely. He's very, very knowledgeable.
Very, very knowledgeable. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mallory's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
Salute.
That's how we own it.